Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. In a recent wave of terrorism, Pakistan lost 20 security personnel who were martyred in Balochistan or Mada and in North Waziristan. This new wave of terrorism, of course, has new dimensions, but I won't say new because this has been happening in Ormara and in Waziristan as well. Pakistani security forces have been fighting extremism and terrorism. Rather, Pakistani nation has been fighting terrorism for the last several years. And we have fought the extremism and terrorism successfully. We also know that who are the supporters, financiers and the fundraisers for these terrorist organizations. In recent reports, TTP and some of the terrorist organizations, banned organizations from Balochistan have accepted the responsibility, claimed the responsibility of these two attacks, one in Balochistan and the other one in North Waziristan. Pakistan has raised up this issue with Afghanistan, where we have seen in the last couple of months there has been a resurgence of TTP, Jamaat-ul Ahrar and Hizbul Ahrar. These terrorist organizations have been teaming up recently and to carry out attacks inside Pakistan. We also remember that a few years back Pakistan launched several massive military operations to clear the area, and the areas are pretty much clear. But these sporadic attacks, they certainly have a message, and it is a question mark, honestly speaking, on the security situation in these areas. We will be discussing about the security dynamics in Waziristan, the security dynamics in Balochistan. Couple of weeks back, months back, there was attack on Karachi Stock Exchange that was also claimed by the some of the terrorist organizations in Balochistan, and Pakistani officials categorically said that India has been financing and supporting these terrorist organizations because they have a problem with the way Pakistan is working on several development projects in these areas in Balochistan and areas bordering Afghanistan, and also on China-Pakistan economic corridor. So, as I said earlier, we will be discussing about the security dynamics, and the timing of these attacks is also very important to observe, because while we discuss about the peace situation in Afghanistan, the intra-Afghan talks, the peace talks as we call them, it is important to observe that the resurgence of TTP over there in Afghanistan and then attacks in Pakistan, are they linked? We will be discussing about this with our special guests in the studios as well as on phone and Skype. We are joined by Mr. Abdullah Gul, now senior analyst on Pakistan's national security, on foreign policy and regional dynamics. Welcome to the show, Mr. Gul. On Skype we are joined by Lieutenant General retired Naeem Lodhi, renowned senior defense analyst and expert on Pakistan's national security and its relations with the regional countries. We are also joined by Mr. Hamid Khan Al-Mashriqi. He is a security analyst and expert on the counter-terrorism and the security dynamics in Pakistan and in the region. I'll start with Mr. Gul. 20 security personnel martyred in Ormara and in North Waziristan. How do you see this? The attacks on the security forces, and by the way, this is not the first time. This happened last year as well. I remember April 2019. The security personnel were targeted, and it was very, I would say, a coordinated attack, it seemed. How do you see this attack again in Ormara and Balochistan?
It is very heartbreaking, actually, very sad, and let me condole with all the grieved one. We are all very sad on this. But at the same time, let's talk about Balochistan especially, yes. Because Balochistan is 44% of Pakistan, and hardly 10 million population is there. So mostly it is all barren and mountainous region, and it's very easy to ambush actually, and especially this coastal line, which is specifically the heart of Pakistan economy to be actually in future. And the international powers, including India, is very unhappy. They are not satisfied with the growth, the economic growth of Pakistan, and with the working of Gwadar port and etc. So I remember that the former naval chief and the present naval chief is very focused towards those, especially at the coastal line. They are concentrating, they are deploying, but we have not much resources because it is very expensive to build up a navy. So I think at present, if we have to see the situation, that enemy is all out to to create a environment where fear should be in our mind. They want to create an environment where Pakistan should be known, or Pakistan should be we must be focused on this, that look, Pakistan is not a safe place where you should go for your investments, and it is a warning to China actually. So they are trying that China should be contained, China should not be focused, and that's why Balochistan and Kashmir both are at fire. According to their, because they are putting up fire over there. They do not want the CPAC entry route to be safe. The exit route should not be safe, and that's why. And what about OGDCL? I know there are number of companies working there because security has to be provided by the security forces because it's a troubled area, but at the same time, those security forces are paying through their life, and what effect it causes. This is something. Sniping took place when a lieutenant colonel was martyred over there. So the heart comes out of your chest. So it's not an easy job. So hats off to the security forces and the armed forces of Pakistan. Government is taking serious measures, but at the same time, more to be done. Not only on the safety sides, but also the ideological area needs to be covered.
And on there are of course many things that we'll discuss in this show today on the tactical level and the strategy level.
Yes, sir.
I'll involve Mr. Al-Mashriqi. Talking about the security situation, let's start with Balochistan first, the Ormara area. This time we have seen that the security personnel, there were martyred, 14 of them were martyred in Balochistan. Earlier last year, 11 security personnel in April 2009, they were martyred. So this is the second incident that has happened in Balochistan. How do you see the security dynamics? And once again, the terrorist organizations banned in Balochistan, they have claimed the responsibility at the tactical level and the strategic level. How do you see, and how can we handle these terrorist organizations operating over there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Taimur. Let me tell you one thing. As you said in the beginning, that there is a long-standing, history of terrorism in Balochistan, and then, it was all supported and financed by, obviously, Indian forces and Indian agencies were practically involved. Kulbhushan was a prime example of all that terrorism went through in Balochistan for many years. But as everybody knows in the world, that Pakistan, armed forces and intelligence services, they have done amazing job to control the terrorism in last, for few years through many operations and everything. But what happening exactly is that India has started its proxy war, on a desperate scale against Pakistan, because India cannot afford or cannot handle it that Pakistan's CPAC is going very well. Pakistan is progressing along with China in the region. I mean, it's a remarkable progress of Pakistan in the region. And secondly, I mean, if you look into the matters of Pakistan government and Pakistan's effort towards, coming out of the FATF, that is again a very, very, very significant success for Pakistan, which India cannot handle. That's the thing. Now, what India is doing is they are reactivating their sleeping cells in Balochistan, in Karachi somewhere, and especially in these areas where the Pakistan army have done a remarkable operation and everything, but still there are some terrorist elements which Pakistan army and forces are trying to tackle. And let me tell you one thing, India is doing what their cunning policies are all over the region. And we have seen a report, I'm sure you may have seen that one as well, that an American institution has given a report that India is involved in financing so many terror attacks within last 10 years. So it is now an open fact And it's an open thing that India has been financing and India has been supporting terrorism all over the world, but especially against Pakistan, to damage the Pakistan and China relations, to affect the CPEC. So this is
Right.
all part of that conspiracy which is going on against,
Right, right.
Pakistan
Right. I think
region.
there's some
That's
connectivity
forever.
issue.
I believe that Pakistan will come out of it.
Right. That's interesting. Mr. Gul, talking about Indian involvement. Interestingly, the way they have been selling the terrorism narrative to the world is dubious, I would say. They have been using terrorist organizations through and through. Mukti Bahini, TTP for that matter, ISIS in Afghanistan recently, Tamil Tigers, the double game going on in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
They have been rather using these proxy wars pretty frequently. Do we have a strategy to expose India regionally and internationally to set this, frame on them that this is what India has been doing, and rather they do the crocodile tears, that it's primarily some other groups in the region, they have been doing terrorism in India.
Well, for Indians, I think who needs enemy when they have Prime Minister like Narendra Modi, I think, because whatever is happening, they have been exposed. Pakistan is doing a wonderful job undoubtedly, but we have to be more focused, and we should take the court, this matter, especially the allegations which were discussed in the foreign policy magazines. And which is a very reputed magazine, and then of course Washington Post, and then there are two human rights commission reports on the atrocities going on in Kashmir. So that matter should be taken legally. India knows that conventional warfare is not possible with Pakistan and China, because we both are superior, alhamdulillah. But at the same time, so they are using proxies. For 2 years after this Kulbhushan thing, Balochistan was quiet, but now again they are thinking, they are trying that American forces should not exit from Afghanistan, or they should create an environment where they should be stuck up over here. So that's why because I've been writing on this also for past 1 year.
Right.
I wrote an article 1 year ago, and that was about that when the exit game will start, then Karachi and the Balochistan will be set on fire. And this is what they are doing, and they are trying to create a impression that Pakistan is not a suitable place, and American forces should not exit from Afghanistan because this region is still unstable, and due to this instability, that India is manipulating all this actually. But at the same time, China is there, and then Indians are also facing
Pakistan
lots
has-
of music from the Western media itself.
But interestingly, we have brought up this issue with Afghanistan several times, that TTP, everybody knows, is using the Afghan soil against Pakistan. Jamaat-ul-Ahrar recently and Hizbul-Ahrar, they have teamed up and they would be carrying out attacks in Pakistan, as you just mentioned, and they are doing that. We were talking about in our previous programs with you, especially with other guests as well, that why don't we ask the Afghan government, the NATO forces, the US forces over there to keep a check on these terrorist organizations? Interestingly, if you ask the Afghan government, they are very clear about it, that we don't have writ of the state over there and we can't do much about it. For the US, they say that we can look into it, and the NATO forces, because they are there now for the resolute support, not to fight the Taliban and do all that. What is the way out then? How do we take action against TTP in Afghanistan?
Well, I think UN has become irrelevant basically, because the previous government and the present government, they have framed some charges, and a dossier was given to United Nations about Indian involvement in Balochistan, specifically about Balochistan. What happened to that? Why UN is so quiet about it? Who is supporting Daesh over there in Afghanistan? Who is supporting Jamaat-ul-Ahrar? Who is supporting TTP? We all know the weapons which they were using, which were found by, which were taken into custody by Pakistan paramilitary forces, they were made in India. So who is supporting, and now the allegations are there. So I am saying that build up a case against international, take it to International Court of Terrorism and Justice, so that India should be, I think, booked for it, and then a trade embargo and a military embargo, so that they should a defense embargo, so
Right.
that they should not be given any further assistance in specifically in the purchase of the weaponry, which they are
right.
purchasing every day. India is destabilizing the region. They are hell bent upon destabilizing the region, and they are looking for trouble, and they are creating trouble. Look at them. They are not happy with Nepal. They are not happy with Pakistan. They are in confrontation with China. They are at loggerhead with
Bangladesh for that matter.
Bangladesh, and then Sri Lanka. Who is safe from them?
Right, right. And we have Lieutenant General Naeem Lodhi on phone call with us, renowned senior defense analyst. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show, General Lodhi. Talking about this recent wave of terrorism, the attack in Ormara and then North Waziristan. How do you see this recent wave of terrorism? And by the way, in Balochistan, this is not the first time. Last year in April, security personnel were targeted in Balochistan, and Waziristan is again, I would say, there is this recent wave of terrorism. How do you see the dynamics, security dynamics in Balochistan and North Waziristan?
Thank you very much. Also, Assalamu alaikum to to look at the events, how they're unfolding, and also how we should react, and what counter plans we must mount. It all depends if we understand the basics. You yourself, you are a student of international relations, and we always say that countries, they have interests which are permanent, and there are no friendships, and there are no foes. So the first thing is to identify the interests of all the players in this region, and then to segregate our friends and foes, and then we can mount a counter plan, and then answer the question that what is happening. We know it very well that it is the connivance of raw, it is the connivance of some elements of one government.
So there is some connectivity issue. General Lodhi, sorry to cut you. We'll get back to you again. I think there is some connectivity issue. Mr. Al-Mashriqi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Taimur.
Right. So looking at the dynamics, the Indian involvement over there, the timing of these attacks, as Mr. Gul mentioned, is important to note and important to observe that while the region is talking about peace and stability in Afghanistan, Pakistani officials, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi himself has been pretty vocal about it, that we should be aware of the role that the spoilers can play, in Afghanistan. Of course, we don't want them to play any role over there, but we know the countries who were left out from this peace talks. India is one of them. I think the only country is India. How do you see the dynamics, and what can we do at the tactical and strategic level to secure our people who are working for Pakistan security, our Jawans in North Waziristan and Balochistan?
Taimur, that is very important. Biggest pain for India that India's been investing in Afghanistan for billions of dollars for last many years just to have some kind of control over Afghanistan, so they can they can always put a pressure on line of control and on Durand line at the same time. So this is the it was a great success from Pakistan in terms of diplomacy, in terms of making the world realize that what India is exactly was doing in Afghanistan, it was never helpful for the peace in Afghanistan at all. So Pakistan has managed to bring this point in front of the world, and this is the biggest pain for India, that they are almost out of the peace dialogues. They are not part of intra-Afghan dialogues. They are not part when Zalmay Khalilzad is in Qatar or wherever he is. Whenever he is talking, it's involvement of Pakistan Foreign Ministry, Afghan government, and Afghan Taliban, but it's not. Indian is not getting any place. This is the biggest jolt for them. This is the biggest, I should say, setback for them. But this is the reaction from India. and this is there. I would say this was quite, as Mr. Gul said, this was quite anticipated as well, that India will do these kinds of terrorist activities against in Pakistan, and to damage and to sabotage these peace process. But I would say that I mean, this peace process will carry on, and eventually there will be a success for Pakistan. Pakistan's Jawans have given their lives, and their lives and their blood will not go in vain. This is for the prosperity and security of Pakistan. This is for the motherland. They have given the sacrifice. India, what India is doing, India is trying to cover themselves after the humiliation which they have faced against China in Galwan Valley and in Ladakh.
Mashriqi,
What humiliation?
Mr. Mashriqi,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you. I'll get back to you on this point on what India wants to do in the region. But before that, General Lodi, talking about this incident in Normala and North Waziristan, as I mentioned, this is not the first time. How can we ensure the protection and security of the security personnel themselves? That is very important. Every Jawan is dear to us, his life is dear to us. What can we do to make sure that these areas are safe and our Jawans too are safe?
Thank you very much. I think first let me cover the internal factors, because before I go to the external factors, I think we have to revise our SOPs. We have to be more efficient in our tactics and in our procedures, so that we don't sustain such heavy losses, because after all, it is a open, you can say, match, and it gives us a lot of pain once the casualties of law enforcement agencies are more than the terrorists. It should never happen. So I think we should not shy away from this accepting this fact that we need to review our tactics and review our ways to fight. But having said that, we are up against a very large and formidable group of enemies, of course led by India itself, some elements within Afghanistan, and I have also strong suspicions about Americans. Because about America, I always say that they have two clear objectives. One is to leave Afghanistan safe and sound, and definitely they are going. Some people are thinking that they will still try to keep some troops. No, they will try to keep their influence all right, but not through troops anymore, because that won't be possible. And the second objective, their objective is to keep the Afghanistan in turmoil and to keep Pakistan under pressure. And why do I say that? If we know their interest, that is, to circumvent China, not to allow China to use Afghan soil and then CPEC route and down up to Indian Ocean, and also their connivance, or not connivance, I would say, strategic partnership with India as a bulwark to China, and also their open objections on CPEC. So if we look at all these, the interests in this region, including Iran and Pakistani nuclear assets, so it becomes very clear that Americans do not want peace in this region. And if anyone wants to have a debate with me on this, based on pure interest, you yourself are a international relation student and also a teacher, so you understand it very well. So I think unless we very clearly recognize our friends and foes, we will not be able to chart out a proper strategy to fight all this, what is happening to us. Actually, we are confused. We are taking some of our not very friendly nations as friends, and we have a blind faith on them, and then we give them a lot of services without getting anything in return. And also within the Afghan, embroglio, there are many entities within Afghanistan who do not want peace, and I do not have to go into details. Why, those who are having a Bollywood time in the presence of Americans or in the presence of American dollars, why would they like to have peace, especially once the main stakeholders, the main future political stakeholders are going to be Afghan Taliban? So I think we must clarify ourselves that who is who and who's doing what to us, and then we must be very clear in our policies. Then we will be able to retaliate properly or make counter plans. Unless we are, sure about this, we'll remain confused. Our reactions will remain confused, and we will keep on, facing a lot of losses. I'm sorry to say. So we need a total review of our policies in this region and our actions in this region. Trying to be a good boy, not doing things beyond a certain line, trying to appease certain quarters. I don't think this is going to. It has not worked. It is not going to work. It has never worked in the history of of the world. So we must learn from history. We must learn from the basic political science edicts, and then make our plan. Whatever we have, of course, we are taking refuge that because our economy is very weak, so we can't do anything. So you mean to say that we are ready to go down the drain along with the weak economy, not trying to do anything about it, about the economy and about our reaction and all that. So I'm sorry to say, I'm not very happy with this situation.
Right. General Lodhi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Very interesting and comprehensive analysis by Lieutenant General Naeem Lodhi. We'll take a break, and after the break we are going to discuss about the security dynamics, and one thing is very important, and that is that who benefits from this turmoil in the region, in Afghanistan for that matter, in Pakistan, by carrying out these terrorist attacks. The proxies have been operating, they operate now, these sporadic attacks happen, but who is behind them and who benefits from these attacks, that is important to observe. And General Lodhi rightly mentioned that we have to come out of this confusion, and perhaps the confusion is there. How can we address that confusion? How can we be more clear about our policy and strategy towards addressing this issue of security, specifically in Balochistan and then in Waziristan? We'll be discussing about this after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing this recent wave of terrorism in Pakistan, in Balochistan and in North Waziristan, in which 20 personnel, security personnel were martyred. Mr. Mashriqi, talking about this situation, as you were mentioning earlier, I would like you to complete your point on CPEC and China that you were talking about, and then we'll move on to the security dynamics in the area. How do you see this?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. That because, as General Sahab was very rightly pointing out, that this is the time when we need to, be very focused. Who's our foe and who's our enemy and who is our friend in the region. And this is very clear that now, as Prime Minister Imran Khan have said categorically many times, that our future is with China. When we talk about that, our future is with China, it means that the importance of CPEC is like a backbone for the future of Pakistan. So this is what hurting not only the India, but so many other stakeholders in the region. So many, and it is because everybody knows in the world, all the think tanks have given the stats that, this CPEC will be a game changer, not only in the region, but it will be a game changer for the world powers as well. And as European Union has said, as Russia has said, and as many, major countries have said, that if China gets stronger and stronger, then America will eventually lose its status as a only world power in the world, which is already happening. We have seen that. So this is something which China, India, America, Israel, they cannot afford it. This is what they are trying to do, every possible thing to sabotage this, and they are trying to do everything. And Pakistan is the main core target because of the CPEC, because of the Gwadar, because of the Pakistan-China relations, and one belt, one route is there. So all this is making it so clear picture that who's our enemy and who is our friend. So this is the time when Pakistan needs to very they need to be very clarified with the world that this is our target. We are not going to compromise on our security. We are not compromise on our backbone. We are not going to compromise on our CPEC or any project with China.
Okay. Mr. Gul, this point raised by General Lodhi is very interesting, and he was skeptic about the way things are going in Afghanistan. The whole idea of peace process over there, and as you mentioned earlier, that we were foreseeing this thing that while these peace talks would start, we might expect some kind of surge in the terrorist attacks, and that has happened now. Who benefits from this chaos in the region? We know India, but generally talking about, this is led by India, but there are so many other players,
backed up by the United States of America. Pakistan paid through blood 80,000 lives we sacrificed. Look at our security forces. Just in past 48 hours, 21 people, 21 son of the soils were martyred. And politics is at its full swing. Nobody is there to condemn. They are just doing politics. They are our heroes. They are pride of Pakistan. And nobody is talking about them. Why? This is one aspect. The other aspect which we were talking, that who is going to benefit out of
From
it.
this chaos.
Naturally, they are putting up all the eggs in Indian basket, and even Obama with his 68 defense agreements, they just gave it to India, and then backed up by Donald Trump sahab, and then continuity is going on, and then they say, including Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, they were saying that India is the one who is their natural ally and Pakistan is just a strategic partner. So tomorrow the strategy can be changed. It is time to revise that, are you with us or not? This is the time Pakistan should be asking that if you want a safe exit from Afghanistan, if you want Pakistan to play a role, Pakistan, lost over 124 billion US dollar in this war on terror. We lost our children, we lost our security personnel, we lost our judges, we lost our lawyers, civilians, etc., businessmen, then the political leadership we lost. Then what is the outcome? And if India is, they cannot harness India, and all the, reasons are there that all the allegations are turned out to be true on India, then what is the, what is the role United States is playing? United States, CIA itself saying that they are saffron terrorists. Then Modi claiming that he was, being an RSS student, he took part in this Mukti Bhani and made Pakistan too. So this is a claim which he has proudly, and then at Lal Killa what he says, that we will do every kind of activity in Balochistan. And all these ethno-separatist groups, are they not backed up by India? There are 5 consulates in Afghanistan at Pakistan border. What are they doing? With their serving brigadier officers, Indians, what are they doing? They are funding, they are providing all the data, they are providing the satellite imagery. They need to be harnessed because Pakistan, it is rightly, General Naeem Lodi said, that we need not to play all the time good boy role. This is the time that Pakistan should flex some muscles and Pakistan should show that if Balochistan, and because Balochistan was always targeted, and I remember the book by Slegg Harrison, a very nicely written book, Balochistan in the shadow of Afghanistan. So whenever Afghanistan is in turmoil, Balochistan is always targeted, and now the CPEC and all the trade is going to go through this region. This means that the enemy is not happy, and that's why India has been backed up by United States of America to contain China. This is containment of China policy which is going on. But it is Pakistan. It is the proxy war. The ground which they have selected is Pakistani soil, which is not permitted. Pakistan whole political system. I remember, let me just give in a minute I'll tell you. Look at our security forces. I remember I was traveling in Balochistan, crisscross, I was traveling Balochistan, and that was Ramzan time. And during the month of Holy Ramadan, FC commander at that time was, then Major General Nadeem Ahmed Anjum. Now he is Commandant Staff College. And General Nadeem Anjum's order were that any time, if it is Sahri time or the Aftar time, civilians should be stopped and they should be offered Aftar and Sahri. So this is the bonding which was created by Pakistan Armed Forces. Where is the civilian setup? What are they doing over there? So I think
multi-pronged approach towards addressing this issue.
It should be, naturally the ideological shift has to be, I think that should be created. But then where are the BLA leaders sitting? And if Free Balochistan posters are being displayed on the governmental properties like buses and trains in Geneva, what does this mean? Can we speak on Holocaust? Can I show some, display some posters over there regarding Holocaust or about a full map of Pakistan with Kashmir on it, and will they allow us? No, they will not allow, because this is something which has been backed up by. So they are creating such kind of a atmosphere where Pakistan should be declared a destabilized country, and they want to denuclearize Pakistan, and for that reason they want to demilitarize first, because Pakistan armed forces are the bone of contention for them.
Right. Mr. Al-Mashriqi, talking about these two terrains, Waziristan, North Waziristan specifically, and then Ormara and Balochistan. Interestingly, Balochistan has a long border with Afghanistan. So does the Waziristan areas, with Afghanistan. Pakistan has been fencing its border with Afghanistan as well as Iran, for that matter. While the fencing goes on, we see that still the sporadic attacks take place in Pakistan. Also keeping in mind that Pakistani armed forces have launched massive military operations in the past, and we see that the security situation is much better now as compared to like 8-10 years back. But still there's a long way to go. How can we ensure the security of these areas of Waziristan specifically nowadays, because we have seen that in the last couple of months, in last 2 months especially, there have been several attacks in Waziristan. What can we do at the tactical level to keep a check on this, while keeping this thing as well in mind, which Mr. Gul just raised, that a political setup also needs to take up its responsibility and work over there?
That's right, Taimur. There are 2-3 dimensions for that answer question. One, there is no doubt that Pakistan will use its right to complete the fence over this border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there is no, Pakistan should not and Pakistan will not compromise, although there have been many hurdles and many obstructions from the Afghanistan side for the border, and they are making so many excuses. They even involved NATO forces and American forces that this fence is going to be affecting them in other way, economically, and so many reasons. But Pakistan will not compromise on building and completing this fence, first. Secondly, Mr. Gul has rightly said that unfortunate that what is happening politically in Pakistan right now, and none of the opposition has courage, or none of them has decency to mention and to salute these brave soldiers who have given their lives for the motherland. And one more thing, Taimur, I was on an Indian channel last week, and they were doing a program on Mr. Sharif's case and hearing, and I was questioning them what is their interest in intervening in Pakistani internal politics, because this is a very important thing. Why India is trying, Indian media and Indian government is intervening in our internal political matters. This is just part of making the increasing this destabilization. That is the only reason. This is the only motive behind that. They are discussing whatever happening politically in Pakistan, and then what they do is they involve in every activity they try to involve our security forces in it, our ISI and other departments in it. But this is the time when Pakistan has to clarify the world that first, whatever internal political matters are going on in Pakistan, it is only Pakistan's internal matter first. Secondly, Pakistan should not compromise on fencing. Pakistan has to, as General Saab has said, that Pakistan Army has to increase its SOPs when they are doing their patrolling and other things. And there has to be more security measures has to be taken to secure the lives of our Jawan. There has to be taken more strict actions and operations if there is any requirement of any large operation in these areas to kill and to finish those sleeping cells. Pakistan security forces should not hesitate and should take the immediate action.
Right. Mr. Al-Mashriqi, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Sure, Mr. Gul, pleasure having you on the show.
Well, I just want to comment lastly that look at this. First of all, the vehicles which are being used by the Pakistan Armed Forces I think they need to be developed in a way where they should be protected from the small firearm and the IEDs. And secondly, Modi is still under ban due to Gujarat massacre to travel to US. So that needs to be, I think, highlighted.
But he did a big rally, Howdy Modi, and Trump joined him.
But
So,
that was
it's
an exemption given. But the third thing is that they are trying to put fire in Balochistan so that all the Afghan transit trade which is going through Gwadar right now should be moved towards Chabahar. So they are forced to do that. So I think the way the attacks are being conducted, they have similarity with the attacks which were conducted by ISIS in Iraq on US troops. So I think that is to be, I think, focused, because then who is the mastermind behind it? Where are the sleeper cells? What are they doing? And what are they up to? So I think this is time that there should be a change of policy.
Mr. Gul, thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you very
Pleasure
much.
having you on the show. Couple of points, very important points raised up in today's show. First of all, that we need to work on the SOPs when it comes to our military personnel going for patrolling, going to these areas, and we need to revise our strategy when it comes to Balochistan and North Waziristan. Pakistan Army has successfully fought the terrorist organizations. Pakistani nation has, I would say, successfully fought the terrorist organizations who were once operating in Pakistan, but we don't see that happening in Pakistan anymore. Many of them, they took refuge in Afghanistan, and Pakistan has been very vocal about this, that TTP, which has claimed the responsibility of the North Waziristan attack, they have their camps in Afghanistan. Jamaat-ul Ahrar and Hizbul Ahrar, they are operating from Afghanistan. It's been 19 years now, but we think that while Pakistan is supporting the intra-Afghan talks, it is the responsibility of Afghan government and the forces, NATO forces and the US forces over there, to keep a check on what is happening inside Afghanistan. Pakistan has taken up this issue. The other point is that we need to strengthen our institutions, we need to revise our strategy and adapt to the new ways of this fighting that goes on. Mr. Gul rightly said that probably the target of these attacks is Gwadar, and we also know the potential of Gwadar and the things that Gwadar port can do for not just for Pakistan but for the region, the positive things. Political parties need to have a joint effort, a joint approach towards addressing this issue of terrorism and extremism in Balochistan and in Waziristan. There is a big room, huge room for development, and we need to work on this. We have to address all these issues, and we hope that they will be addressed. Each Jawan who lost his life, who was martyred in Balochistan and Waziristan, is precious for us. We salute our Jawans who were martyred, who lost their lives, and Pakistan stands with its Jawans who protect us, and we protect them. Thank you for watching today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.